We are live, and thank you for joining us today. This is Andrew Williams Jr. of I'm the president of 5 Points Youth Foundation, but also I'm the international media director for the Revelation Network, TRN.TV. Your host today actually is Mr. Jehoshaphat Moses of CAV Africa, the Center for African Volunteers, and I'm happy to have you with us. So, Jehoshaphat, with that, I'll allow you to introduce yourself and the program. I'm the president of 5 Points Youth Foundation.
Thank you so much, Ambassador William Andrew, for giving us this opportunity and also being a co-host in this session of today. My name is Josephat. My name is Josephat Moses Ochieng, the executive and founding director of Center for Africa Volunteers. Center for Africa Volunteers is an organization that works to promote peace, sustainable development, and African unity across the continent. Largely and broadly, we work in four major programs. We have the International Exchange Program and the Repatriation Program, which we run in collaboration with the State of the African Diaspora. We also actively run a program that now brings us here together, 365 Days of Civic Engagement, whose subset program, Add Your Voice, that we are running right now. The 365 Days of Civic Engagement is primarily meant to create active citizenry across the continent of Africa with special reference to Kenya. The third program that we are working on currently is the Restitution Project. The Restitution Program is a program that is aimed at bringing back all the artifacts that were stolen from the continent during the period of colonization. And as well, we are working on an agricultural program where we are empowering the citizenry, towards food security by investing more in agricultural produce. So in brief, that is me, and that is what I represent, and I thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We have other guests with us. It seems that Vincent, you will be making a long 15-minute presentation, so I'll introduce you last. One of our guests is Mr. Michael Cooper Adabisi from Germany. So Michael, please take a few moments and introduce yourself to our guests, along with your background in activism. Please speak loudly.
Yes. Thank you so much for giving us to be part of this program. My name is Michael Coopers Adebisi. I'm from Afrotech TV Cyber Nomads, and we've been in the organizing field ever since the middle of the 80s. We've been co-starting with the initiative Black Germans, that is the modern version of what African diaspora is representing in Germany. We are also working quite heavily with the African diaspora. We are with many projects. We are part of the Decade for People of African Descent. To give you a short timeline, in 2002, we created the first overview on the African diaspora in Germany, Federal Office for Civic Education of the German government. We traveled around Germany for 2 years to create documentation, important document on the African diaspora. In 2004, the UNESCO Germany Literary Award that we initiated, the Mayhem Award. Mayhem was a major Afro-German poetess. The UNESCO
Michael is on and off. I don't know what
the Mayhem Award. In 2000, pronounced our project, the Mayhem Award, UNESCO project, recognition of its abolition. Right now, presently, we are in the process of reenacting our Black Berlin art and discourse we're working with the Namibian communities to get their, and with the Tanzanian community in Tanzania recognized in Germany, which is a hardcore political process. So in the fields, the Black Berlin Biennale for Contemporary Art and Discourse starting at the end of August until the end of August. So that's the major focus for this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Edidong. I know it's a little short notice, but please, thank you for joining us. And if you can unmute yourself, introduce yourself and your organization, we would certainly appreciate that. Yes, you, Mr. Edidong. Please unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Mr. Edidong, we're having, oh, there you are. Yeah, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's now 6 p.m. Okay, my name is Edidi Oekanem. I'm currently in Nigeria. I'm the president and founder of Association for Health, Safety, and Environmental Awareness International. Basically, what we do is to go to communities, schools, churches, mosques, roads to create awareness about health and safety, because we realize that it's only a few people that know what health and safety is all about. That's why we deem it fit to go to all these places to sensitize people and create this awareness. So right now we are covering over 20 states in Nigeria, and we hope to expand to other countries as we have people who are coming in on a daily basis to join us in this mission. So thank you very much for having me in this program. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Kindly, Ambassador, unmute yourself. We are not able to hear Ambassador, what Ambassador is saying. Am I the only one?
I can't hear the ambassador either.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, very well. Please, Vincent, introduce yourself and then make your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much
Yes,
for. I'm saying thank you very much for this invitation, and I'm happy to be on the panel this time. It is 9 p.m. in Kenya, and it is East African time. So I'll just introduce myself. I'm Vincent Mwita, as it is written there. Working with Tunaweza Empowerment. I'm the founder and the executive director. So basically, Tunaweza Empowerment Organization is an African youth-led advocacy organization in Migori County. That is one of the counties in Kenya. We have 47 counties. So Migori County is one of the 47 counties we have with the dispensation of of the Constitution that we recently had in 2010 in August. At Tunaweza, we promote and champion youth engagement in devolution. That is the devolved system of governance that we are having under the new constitution we got in 2010. And also we participate and we involve ourselves in ending sexual gender-based violence, and as well as female genital mutilation, which is a cultural practice of that affects girls and women in a society that I come within Migori County. That is perhaps Korean community, a small community in this county, a marginalized community. We do this through capacity building, we do advocacy, and through advocacy we have awareness programs, we have dialogues, and we have perhaps forums that we conduct as an organization. So basically that is about Tunaweza and all that stuff. So particularly coming to the topic of the day, the tools of civic participation in grassroots organization, I can basically say that civic participation, the main aim of civic participation is to promote social change as much as socially, as environmentally, as politically, with the principal instrument for change, basically looking at the people as the center stage. So when we focus and look at the civic participation, let us see the concept of social change. How do we promote? How do we come about? How do we realize this change in our society setup, in our areas where we live in our government and the people? So this is something that we really need to look into. And point number one, what are some of the effective tools that community leaders like us, like most of the panelists that are here today, that had introduced themselves and what they do as community leaders, we can use? How can we use this to organize community for civic actions? And one of the tools that we need to really identify is civic education. Civic education is very, very key to realize social change and to bring change to the people, and also perhaps to bring a common understanding to the community, a common understanding to the taxpayers, a common understanding to the people who are supposed to get service and goods from government, be it the devolved system of governance, the government, or the national government, as it is here in Kenya. So in Kenya we have two governments. You have the national government that currently works with the county government. So how can we, by involving the citizen through civic education, whereby we really highlight, we really teach on basic of the Constitution, whereby we realize that communities, or maybe perhaps the citizen, don't understand, don't have a common knowledge on the basic principles, the articles that are bestowed in the Constitution, that is a law that governs a country like in Kenya. So basically, when we do awareness and educate our people on basics, what is contained in that Constitution, it helps them to realize their rights. It helps them to have a demand mentality. It helps to change their mindset and perspective on, rather than seeing the government as a wing of giving them help, rather than seeing a government as it was historically, that in Kenya we use leaders, the citizen used to tell leaders that perhaps, can you help us? In Swahili we say mtukufu rais tusaidie. So it means in English it means president, help us. So let the citizen realize that it is their right, it is constitutionally bestowed, it is constitutionally supported for them to get quality service delivery. So with this, we purposely concentrate on the Constitution and the basics. What Can the community understand devolution and all the object of devolution? As we know, the object of devolution as a system of governance in Kenya is to ensure that the community is included. The voice of the community is enhanced right from planning to budgeting, to implementation, to oversight role, and to many to implementation and service delivery. Then tool number 2 that we perhaps we can look into is the media. So when we look at the media, let us look at it at a perspective of a tool of social, tool of one of the tools that we really need to use to engage our communities. So like for Migori County or in Kenya, we use, like for my community, we use local media houses, local radio stations, perhaps in terms of ensuring that public participation are done within through budget periods, through budgeting periods, through planning periods, whereby citizens are able to voice, citizens are able to get all they want to know about planning of their life within that document of planning, that government document that is called the in Kenya we call it the annual development plan, or the 5-year plan, the 5-year plan, that is the county integrated development plan for the counties, and the plan and the budgeting for the national. So the community really need to put their priorities in that document, and using media as a tool is a tool of engaging the duty bearers, engaging the leaders, engaging those that are in charge, so that our priorities, the citizen priority, are reflected in that document on planning, on budgeting. Perhaps, for example, when the community needs water, let it come from them, that we really need to prioritize, to put a priority on budgeting or planning for maybe availability of water in our region. Or perhaps maybe when it is medical, they need good health facilities, let it be a priority in the document, because we believe that as much as planning and budgeting is happening at the national levels, at the government level, anything that is not planned for, anything that is out of budget, cannot be implemented. So it is the opportunity that a community can use to participate, the duty bearers can use to participate, to involve the citizens, so that they can put in their key priorities to be reflected in the main document of budgeting. Another thing is perhaps when equipping the local community with knowledge and skills for their participation in county planning that I've really elaborated, and also perhaps capacity building the marginalized groups. When I started my presentation, I said that I come from the marginalized community within my my devolved system of governance, one of the counties that we work in as Tunaweza. Tunaweza is a Swahili word that means yes, we can. In short, it means we can. So what we really look at is we are trying to engage the community, this marginalized community, so that they can as well be involved in the local decision making and even in structure of governance. So perhaps I've just mentioned those few tools, and I'll just jump into my second point, that is how we have applied as Tunaweza, how we've applied as an organization, as young people on these tools. So one thing we do is civic education. We have civic educators within our organization, and I'm one of the civic education as the founder. So what we do, we focus on the constitution when we go to the communities, to the field, when we organize forums before the COVID-19 pandemic. We used to do to organize communities through forums. We go to the communities, we alert them on early basis. We call them on a central point: women, persons living with disabilities, youth, and even the old men and women. So what we do, we start with basics of constitution. What is the purpose of constitution? We start with Article 1. The Constitution of Kenya talks about sovereignty, power. it means that the power belongs to the citizen. The citizens are the chief bosses in decision making, in putting up their voice. There is no any other voice that supersedes the voice of the citizens. That is the Article 1 of our Constitution, and that is what it talks about. So we really expand to them and make them understand that constitutionally they are entitled. It is not a begging. It is not a begging issue. It is their right. It is bestowed in the Constitution, because they want an improved life, and not just an improved life, but quality and measurable standard of living. So we normally conduct the civic education on those three: the Constitution, and we really focus on public participation as a module. We focus on devolution, that is the devolved system of governance, and also ensuring that they know their rights as bestowed in the Constitution. Then how we are using it, how we are using these tools are for social audits. We also engage our communities through our organization on facilitating social accountability mechanisms, whereby we really focus into the plans, the annual development plans of the county. We really look into those plans after engaging the community to participate, after engaging the community to always be at the forefront in those the community forums on budget plans and budgeting. Because I think Josephat can bear me witness, because our engagement as the community has not been intentional. As duty bearers have not been intentional with involving the community, taking the voice of the community into budgets. So it is rather participation to legitimize. It is not participation to transform. These two have the difference. So when you want to make a citizen to participate in budget making process, in decision making issues, but you are not so intentional, you don't there is not that basis of causing transformation. You want to legitimize a policy document through people, but you don't want to involve them to put their voice in that document. You don't want to involve them to put on their priorities. It is rather called legitimation. But when you want to cause a transformation, you'll rather make them participate to make a transformation on their life. So we really identify projects that are budgeted in the plans and budgeting of a county, of the national government. Then we do something called social audit through different tools, and we really monitor it from how much was the project how much did the project costed, how much was released by the county, the treasury, the county government, and what have you, and what have been used. We use community to ascertain, we use everything and all other tools to ensure that it is in place. And with this COVID-19, we have an issue on construction in our county. We have an issue of construction of a modern stadium. This project has really eaten millions of shillings of our taxpayers' money. But the situation on ground, I share this on my Facebook page, and there's a write-up on our dailies, our newspapers in Kenya that help in highlighting this issue, whereby this field has turned to be where cows are grazing. It has turned to be a grazing field. But when we look into the budget from those the previous financial year, that the government of Kenya has put money into that, both the county and the national government has put money into that project, there is nothing to smile about. And this is a project that should help the community. The young people in sports should use this facility. So these are some of the things we really look into. Recently, we saw our county putting some budget on buying coffins, not on emergency issues or disaster management issues, but on independent way. And we question this. We've written a memo to the county government to ensure that before passing this year's budget for the county, they really needed to look into it. But up to now, we've not seen any change in that document. And perhaps they've gone ahead to reflect the purchase of coffins, and also in the Ministry of Public Service, and also in the Ministry of Disaster. And for the Ministry of Disaster is understandable, but the Ministry of Public Service, they have not come clear to explain why did they put that money into budget. And if they put it in budget, now the citizens are under pressure because of okay, that reflect the interest of the people. The recovery plan, how are we going to recover from the COVID-19 shock? Can we have a budget that will ensure that young people or young entrepreneurs are able to get loans, are able to get grants to continue with their business post COVID-19? Women who are in business, doing business, the citizens or farmers who are involving themselves in agriculture, can they get incentives from the county government and the national government? So these are the issues we look into that are really looking into the issues of the citizen. Then I would like to highlight few barriers to working with the community in terms of civic participation or public participation. One is lack of awareness. As I stated earlier, lack of awareness. The citizens, most of the citizens, many of the citizen or community members are still not aware of, they really don't understand the process of budgeting, the governance structure, even the devolved system of governance, that is the new system of governance in Kenya. They still don't know. They don't know the role of a governor. They don't know the role of an MCA. I recently, in most of our activities, we've had people saying that MCA told us that the member of county assemblies, those are the leaders of the smallest unit in governance in Kenya, in the devolved system of governance, called a member of county assembly, that he has not provided water, he has not provided road, while he promised in his campaign. But when we go into the roles of an MCA, is not providing roads, is not providing water to the community, but rather is to look into, to legislate, to look into the policies that are bestowed in the devolved system of governance, that is county government. So people are not aware, people still don't understand the system of governance, and perhaps there are those who are ignorant. Then another issue is attention attention to public affairs. This is something that is serious in our community. Communities bring issues, petitions, they bring complaints to the necessary government, but the government cannot act upon these issues. They ignore, they lack attention, they don't give attention to the affairs of the citizens. So these are some of the issues that community pass through. And from the recent demonstration that was organized, I think it was highlighted, the Sabasaba, we really saw what happened. We really saw the way police dealt with Wananchi. We really saw the way police happened to have done to the citizens who are marching to affirm the human rights, who are marching to affirm to demand their rights as a citizen. And it is provided in the constitution, it is provided in the laws, and we really see what happened in Kenya on that day. So it's really unfortunate. Then we have another issue of poor implementation of policies. I want to tell you, Ambassador, and the rest of the panel, Josephat and everyone, that Kenya has the best policies so far on the books. But the issue is implementation of these policies. So working with the community, we get that we have so many policies, but implementing these policies become an issue. And these are the policies, when they are fully implemented, they will cater into the interest of the citizens. They will better the lives of us, the citizens of the community, of the citizens of this nation, of these counties. So this is something that is a major challenge that we really look into. And my community and the county where I come in, most of the people are languishing in poverty. So poverty makes civic participation less of a priority. Sometimes when we call forums as an organization, you get that community members cannot participate because they didn't have even food to put on their table. They are languishing in poverty, and this is not less of a priority. Calling them for me to come in a meeting and listen and demand my rights and see what I'm supposed to get and see how I can conduct a civic action, but there's no food on my table. People are poor. So those are the challenge of issues that we've met. And sometimes as an organization, we really need to come back and sit down on a round table and see how we can help these communities. And this is whereby we will really recommend the Center for African Volunteers to come in so that they can really help us, especially on the issues that Josephat touched on agriculture. We really need to strengthen the economic status of communities as much as we train them. We do awareness on civic roles. We really need to look into that so that they can take this as a priority. Then, parting short, how can we collectively make our communities resilient and civically active? I'll sum it into one statement that we really need to avail the information. As we all know that information is power. And when we give information to our community, as an organization, we really need to not to be there for them to take a civic action. As organization represented here, Center for Africa Volunteers and any other organization, they really not to be there with the community. That as Vincent is taking the community through a peaceful demonstration. Vincent is leading this group to do a petition on maybe a road. I really not need to be there. But the community, where an informed community is a community that will ensure that they take civic action by themselves and put the duty bearers who are leaders to implement some of the issues that they have brought on board and have been captured in the planning processes, in the policies, and everything that are there. So perhaps we really need to bring also to come together collectively as organization, as civil organization, as a community, as duty bearers, so that we can really help our community to ensure that they civically participate in the affairs of their issues. Otherwise, I'll stop there and maybe perhaps we'll continue. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Vincent, very, very much. I would like to add one additional question, and that question is actually the last one. I'm modifying it just a little bit. The question I would like to ask is, how do you see? Well, let me just repeat it verbatim, so I will not make a mistake and I won't leave anything out. How do you believe that the community can collectively make? How do you believe we can collectively make our communities resilient and civically aware, but not just aware, but empowered? So could you answer that question?
Yeah, I've got the question. How will we make our community resilient and civically aware, and not just aware, but to be empowered?
Yes.
I think, as I know, it is constitutionally in Kenya. It is constitution. The civic participation is enshrined into the constitution. And when we look at Article 174C of our Kenyan constitution, it talks about objects of devolution. Why devolution? Why devolved system of governance in Kenya? This came to enhance, as you read through those point issues in that article 174 C, you'll get that is to enhance the lives, is to make a citizen to be empowered, is to involve, to bring their voice into a central point and cause change to their lives. So it is not something debatable. It is something that is constitutionally provided for. When we go to our constitution of Kenyan Constitution 2010, chapter 1 talks about, as I said earlier, talk about sovereign power. The power belongs to the people. So it is constitutionally that communities need to be empowered by the government. Why government? We really need to know that as citizens, as community, as much as we call ourselves community, because we live in a community, we live in a society, we are entitled in paying taxes. And tax is one of the items that should transform our lives, should bring services and goods to us as the citizens. So it's a responsibility of the government, like in Kenya, for the both national and the county government to ensure that the citizens are empowered and are resilient. So it is not something debatable. It's something that we really need. As much as we say that CAV or Center for African Volunteers need to do advocacy, need to capacity build people, but it should not do as a priority. It should just do as a support system to the government, complementing what the government should do. But the main role and purpose and responsibility lies into the government, because public participation and informed citizenry is a responsibility of the government through our taxes, through the rights that are bestowed in our constitution. So I think, number two, apart from the role of the government, also the stakeholders need to come on board, so that we can always make the citizens aware by capacity building them, by creating awareness on the civic tools, as today we are talking and we are discussing on this social media platform. We really need also to bring our communities, give them space, so that we can train them, so that we can make them aware, so that we can capacity build them to stand for themselves, to demand what rightfully belongs to them, peacefully and constitutionally. We really not need to see the government eating his own people, like we saw during the Sabasaba March. Citizens need to be given space so that they can air their issues, so they can put their priorities on the budgets and plans. For they can give priorities on what they want and how they want it to be done. So basically, Ambassador, that is my point on that issue. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Josephat. Would you or any of our other panelists like to have any questions or comments on what was just spoken?
I'm familiar with most of the things that he's talking about, because more or less we come from the same county.
Yeah.
I'm glad that is mentioned of critical issues that that arose a few weeks ago. For example, when legislatures, people who have the mandate to make laws that serves the people, gives a response to COVID-19 by putting a budget of coffins. It's a sad state of affair, and I've heard him mention that they had already written a letter complaining of the same, which I must commend you so greatly for that good deed. Perhaps just to ask you, how do you handle issues of nepotism and negative ethnicity? Because corruption springs from nepotism, it brings in negative ethnicity. How do you handle that as a person and also as an organization? Issues of corruption and nepotism.
Thank you very much, Josephat, and I must recommend you for what you are really supporting in your county of origin, that is Migori County, and also rolling out the 360 days of civic engagement. That is, I must recommend you for these, and hopefully I'm going to take this on another level from another region, perhaps Kuria, where we are basically located within the county. So issues around nepotism and ethnicity has been a thorn in the flesh of the citizens. Because perhaps even when we look at the with the introduction of the devolved system of governance, and introduction of a governor as the chief executive officer of a county, we have really seen mischievous issues. We have really experienced traumatizing appointments that sometimes we as an organization, I as Vincent as an individual, sometimes we really have to sympathize with ourselves. Because you get that these state and public officers appoint their wrong relatives, and not one, not two. They put them into a leadership or maybe perhaps a position in the county, appoint them to position. Then we have another issue whereby we see ethnicity, and we see one tribe, one ethnic community has a lot of employment opportunities. Wherever there is an employment opportunity in the county government, and this is not only in Migori County, we've seen it all along with the recent Kirinyaga, when Kirinyaga governor for Kirinyaga was being grilled by the senators. We really saw it openly in Kenya that he had appointed his relative at the Department of Procurement, and this is not also a different story in Migori County. We've seen the governor appointing his relative in the Ministry of Finance, in the Ministry of Procurement, in the Ministry of Trade, and all what have you. We've seen the tenders giving the relatives in the county procurement opportunities, the relatives, and it has come out clear. There's a time our governor had some money, had transferred some money into his children's account in Tokyo, and this came out clear. With it was alleged. It came clear when the ECC came into our county and was doing investigation. These are the alleged issues that came in. But so as an organization, what we do, we normally petition these positions. When we see something like that, we do a petition, we write letters to the county government, we organize and mobilize communities to refuse these and to perhaps petition these as well. We've seen it several cases. There's a time we petitioned one who was in procurement office. He was a relative and he was appointed barely 2 months. And as an organization, we saw that it was not prudent and we really needed to act. So we mobilized our community. And what we did as young people, because perhaps as him being a relative, he was not also implementing the 30% procurement opportunity for the youth, that is youth, women, and persons living with disability. So we decided as young people to ensure that we petitioned him, and better enough, in the process, he was dropped off, and we don't know where he was employed again. We've never heard of him, but he was replaced. So this is one of the approaches that we've been doing. But we are not doing this to make somebody lose his job or a job, but we are doing it for the betterment of the community. Apart from being a relative, we also saw that he was not actually making the AGPO access to government procurement opportunity, that is 30%. That state that 30% of procurement opportunities should go to women, specifically women, youth, and person living with disability. Any procurement in any department, even at the national, it is a policy that is even in our national, and even government borrow it from there. So that was also, apart from being a relative, that was also another ground of petitioning and writing letters so that he was removed in that position. So it is really a hard thing. Nepotism and ethnicity is a hard thing, because when we approach it, it's like we want somebody to lose his job. It's like we are complaining, but rather it is not a case. It is a citizen outcry. It is a citizen role to ensure that as much as you put a relative, you give a relative who is qualified a job, let us also ensure that these opportunities are centrally devolved and equally shared. Thank you very much, Josephat and Ambassador. Any other question?
Thank you so much for that great input. Over to you.
Ambassador, you can mute yourself. We're not able to hear you.
Oh, thank you very much. Let me ask if we have a. Thank you very much. If we have the opportunity now, these issues have focused primarily on Kenya, but I wanted to thank you, Josephat, for allowing me to reach out to other participants throughout the diaspora. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Josephat, for allowing me to reach out to the diaspora. So if you could now take an opportunity to share with us your experience and also your activities in raising awareness through civic engagement in Germany to raise awareness of the African diaspora and the importance that you play.
Yeah. Very interesting to report rolling in from Kenya and from the continent. Just last year, we went to Nigeria to contribute to educating the youth of Nigeria. 1-year project. But let me go back in time a little bit. If you talk about in 2007, African Union African Union, Germany, it was declared that African diaspora to the continent.
I don't know if I'm the one who is not getting Michael clearly.
We ourselves empower ourselves very much. So we are empowering ourselves by great continent. I am very interested in finding techniques and unite the discourse that make it not just locally Kenyan, Indian, connect in a way that all discourses, local discourses, become reality. What is it that we have to do so that we really work with digital tools of talking to each other, of bringing each other's reality straight to the house front of each other, and one step to it.
Well, Michael, I'm afraid that we cannot hear you clearly enough, so I'm going to ask you to mute yourself. And Mr. Eddie Dong, if you could unmute yourself, could you please take a look in the chat to review the topics that we're discussing? I'll repeat them for you, but primarily they involve 4 different areas that Josephat has asked us to address. Number 1 is, what are some of the effective tools community leaders use to organize communities for civic action? How have you applied these tools? What are some of the likely barriers one is bound to face when working with communities? And how can we collectively make our communities resilient and civically active, and I'm adding empowered? Now, I'd like you to answer that from the perspective of your work in Nigeria and throughout Nigeria in organizing the transportation drivers there to be empowered in their local community. So Eddie Young, could you please unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Ambassador, just to interrupt you, just before he comes in, I would like you to introduce Mr. Hashi Daniels, who has just joined us right now.
Thank you.
Kindly.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Daniels, thank you so much for joining us. If you can hear us, please introduce yourself briefly and let us know what you would like to address in these issues that you've heard so far. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Very well.
So my name is Michael Daniels. I'm with the African Diaspora Directorate and Friends of the African Union, where I'm chairman. I used to be a diplomat for the country of Guinea to the United States as the senior honorary consul office from Guinea to the United States. And so we are participants in the African Union civil society as an observer. So all of those of you who are on the call who are in Africa right now, that is an opportunity for you as civil society right now, that the African Union civil society is called ECOSOC. If you're not a member and participating in your countries respectively, we will help you join into that because they're holding a whole series of meetings with the vice chairman of the African Union. Recently, they turned in a report on COVID-19. Okay, for the first time, civil society has turned in a continent-wide report on COVID-19 as a consultation. The other part is the African Development Bank has made an agreement with the United States for at least $5 billion for Africa and civil society. And the way we do it is through public-private partnerships. I mentioned the gentleman in Kenya. We started in Kenya in Embu province. Okay, and so actually last year, your president and our president put in the framework for providing funding to replace the Chinese funding that has been used in your country. So that's now the part that has to happen is civic participation. Okay, and so that we would drive that agreement. And the same thing in Nigeria, in that in all countries are the universal periodic review of the human rights in each country. And so that y'all should be participating in that. In the case of Nigeria, 2018, we did. And, you know, last year, the chief of staff agreed. And what we proposed was the sell-off of the natural gas rights. And as you know, last year, the government said that they would sell the natural gas that they burn off. And unfortunately, he was killed this year because of COVID-19. But that's still in play in Nigeria. And so we do civic participation through the United Nations in ECOSOC, through the African Union in ECOSOC and CEDAW, and through directly in-country participation through the United Nations associations that provide connectivity. We look forward to working with all of you to make those happen.
Well, thank you very much, Herschel. Mr. Edidong, if you could unmute yourself. Well, in the first place, before I go forward, are there any questions for Herschel before I bring in Mr. Edidong? Herschel, on the
Yes.
I did include the African Diaspora Directorate on the chat on the Facebook chat, so our audience will know how to reach you. But you may want to include that in this chat here as well. But yes, Josephat, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Hashi, for joining us in this very platform. I don't think I have a lot much to ask at this level, but I'm asking to engage you after this conversation so that we can formulate a way of working moving forward. I'm very grateful for the offer and for the opportunity that you've just presented in this platform. Moving forward, we believe that through working together with your channel, with your organization, and the organizations that you proposed, we are going to go a little far. Notably, one of the greatest things that you kindly mute your microphone when you're not talking. There's a lot of echo. Yes, one of the greatest things that you've mentioned that I agree with is replacing Chinese funding or Chinese financing with other sources of financing. It has been a greater cry. It's been a greater cry for all of us, all civil societies and people in the continent. The manner in which the Chinese are coming to Africa. Chinese loans, according to us, they are loans that are kind of a bait to the nation. Chinese loans are loans that are meant to enslave us in a way. So maybe we'd seek your guidance. How do we as young people secure our future and the future of our children? And how do we influence our governments from getting to or from dumping us to these loans that are poisonous? How do we handle this?
If I
Daniels can mute himself. Can't hear you.
Yeah, Herschel, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now.
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm sorry. So number one, in Kenya, there's a specific agreement that your president and our president put together that as of November 12th last year, put available for replacement of Chinese debt in Kenya. All right. And then they executed an agreement between the African Development Bank and our DFC. So we in America and you in Kenya can put together what's called a public-private partnership to do that. And that was put in place, but then COVID hit this year. And so consequently, that meeting that was going to happen in the African Continental Free Trade Area that certified that in March did not happen. So instead of continent-wide, we can work with you directly because your president already put in place the model. Now, he didn't expect it to come from the civilian side. He didn't expect young people to participate in it. But because I've been in Kenya for 5 years, starting in Embu, okay, what the Chinese want is that they want the South Sudanese oil that when it starts being shipped through Kenya, that they control the port. That's why they put the railroad in. And that's why, so we have all that information to work with you to do that. And the vehicle to do that through is this agreement. But in Nigeria and like Kenya is all under the Universal Periodic Review of Human Rights. So your governments then lay out what they think is happening in human rights. And so you as civil society then can respond to that, and you can respond as in using the resources of the country in the public-private partnership. Only Kenya is the only government in Africa right now that has that agreement in place. All right. Nigeria, like I said, the chief of staff, he was moving that way, but unfortunately, as you know, COVID killed him this year. Okay. But the basic revenue participation mechanism is in place and accepted by the government of Nigeria. All right. They had agreed to it. There was going to be a trade fair in Nigeria in March. In April. And between the United States government and Nigeria, and of course, COVID wiped that out. Okay. And so that's what we're looking to work with you as civil society, is to show you the tools that are in place. And I gave you the Kenyan UPR so that you have it, but we're willing to follow up on these conversations and make these, in fact, show it how it's done. Look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you.
Now, I
Thank
do
you
this
so
as
much.
Friends of the African Union, in each individual country. But then I do it with your diaspora who are here in America as the African Diaspora Directorate.
Thank you, Herschel. So, Mr. Edidong, if you're available now and could unmute yourself, I would appreciate it if you could introduce yourself and share with us your grassroots organizing experiences with the transportation industry and other areas. I'm sorry, you introduce yourself, sir. Let me not do it for you.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador. I don't know if you can hear me. Can we hear me? I did your name.
Yes, I can hear you.
Nigerian.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Edidio Ekanem. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm currently resident in Nigeria. So I'm a health and into health and safety practice for over 10 years. Had the passion to go into health and safety because of what has befallen people in this part of the world. I've been seeing so many fire disasters, domestic accidents, road accidents, occupational accidents, and I was like, I need to do something about it. What platform do I need to actually achieve the mission I want to go into? I started by working with people. So many of is the company. So after which March this year, I had to resign because I had already started something. This organization that I'm currently working, and because I was working with somebody, he didn't really give me the time to actually pursue the mission as it's supposed to be. So I had to resign mission. So basically, I'm the president and founder of Association for Health, Safety, and Environmental Awareness International. Basically, what we do is to go to estates that people live, churches, we go to we go to schools, we go to churches, we go to companies who accept us to create awareness on health and safety, so that people can be aware of this hazard. So basically, our vision is to be the leading health and safety organization that, you know, our core objective, what we do, or how do we achieve our aim and objective. We partner with regulatory bodies in Nigeria, such as the federal road. We try as much as possible to liaise with the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Health. Pandemic in March, we did a project in one of the communities. We tested some people. We used thermometer to check the pressure, the temperature of students. We had a large number of pupils who were available for this project. We also had health and safety children how to, with the team I put in place, because in Nigeria there are 36 states. I've been able to see how I can, establish this organization in order to be able to reach out to as much as possible, people as much as in of the world. So though we have challenges, because most of our sponsors, because of the pandemic, some of their businesses have gone down, which I understand. What we do, we task us to achieve a process. So I'm talking with you to disinfect classroom blocks, because in Nigeria currently the federal government has announced that there will be a guideline for schools to resume, because currently everywhere was on lockdown. So there's a guideline now from the FG that thoughts as much as possible to see how we can help the government to also flatten the curve of pandemic by ensuring the students getting into their classrooms want to see how to disinfect the classroom blocks, the school environment, and also help to put these guidelines in place. And also we try as much as possible to see how we purchase extinguishers, because in recent times there have been a lot of fire incidents in homes, in companies, marketplace. They call it Balogun Market. It was dotted with fire, and most people do not really understand how to fight fire, because like one incident I saw the other day, a lady's car caught fire, and she actually had the fire extinguisher inside. She had the fire extinguisher in her vehicle, but she didn't know how to use the fire extinguisher. She went inside the vehicle, fire extinguisher, wanted to dump inside the engine where the fire was burning. And somebody shouted, "Madam, no." So these people might say, okay, because regulation that's in the have to operate this fire extinguisher. Some of them do not really know how this can be functional, or how it can be serviced. How long will it take for you to use this fire extinguisher before you start servicing it? So this is exactly what I am trying to put in place, so that we'll be able to go everywhere. I'm trying to see how I can make things work out. I can see how, so that I'm in place, so that this awareness can spread to every part of the world. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Edidon. The reason why I brought you into this is because we're asking about what tools can be used to mobilize the citizenry. And it sounds like you work directly with both the minister on one hand and the local community on the other hand. So were you able to do that by one-on-one engagement with them? Or were you able to use any social media tools? Or how did you establish a relationship to be able to make a change on the local level? I'm not sure if you heard me, Mr. Edidon.
I think he is not there. He stepped out.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then coming back to you, Jehoshaphat, in your 365 days of civic engagement, as I understand it, your intent is to not just have an impact today or tomorrow, or not just for 365 days. As I understand it, this is to be a 2-year cycle, and that's to align with the presidential election, so that you are able to engage your citizenry and empower them to make change. I want to ask you, though, however, do you see any way that you might be able to involve some education of the civil population in Kenya about some of these ways that they too can have disaster awareness, preparedness in your civic engagement outreach as a way to empower the local community?
Yes, the primary aim of 365 days civic engagement is to capacitate the citizenry to be able to act and change the undesirable circumstances surrounding them. The key area, or the key area of focus of the 365 days of civic engagement at the end of it is to organize the citizenry from the local level, from the village level, ward level, constituency level, or sub-county levels, to the county level, and also forming an umbrella body that unifies all civil society organizations across the country, that is at the national level. So at every level of integration and coalition, there is room for us to introduce other measures, other topics that can be deemed useful to a segment of the population, as long as and provided that there is need for that program, and provided that that program or the project that we're going to introduce in different levels and different segments is impactful to the society. So my answer is yes, we can incorporate the same, especially during the second phase, the second phase of the first quarter, that will be beginning in the next 2 or 3 months' time.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so very much. We've covered most of the areas of our intent today. We do have, again, if you can, Mr. Michael Coopers, try once again. We would like to get your input, but we're having problems with your connection. So, Mr. Michael Coopers, could you please mute yourself and attempt to make your presentation now before we leave? Mr. Michael?
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
A little better, but go ahead. We'll see.
I find it very interesting because we're working also on the level of high impact with government and with institutions, high level institutions, and at the same time involved in on the grassroots level. The means of how we achieve our impact, that we always keep our ear to the ground. We always have the young and the refugees, those community that are the most vulnerable, very close to our at the same time, we're building a house now in Neukölln, in a part of Berlin, will be able to accommodate the communities, the different communities, so that they finally find a home, a center, organize, and to cooperate with is 4,500 square meters of one world center that we're building. And at the same time, we're also reaching out to the continent, reaching out to the other diasporas, like our work long time. And that's our way of it. Because as long as we isolated in a different settings, in our different worlds, and as long as we don't make up this powering the diaspora continent, we will always stay weak. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jehoshaphat. We've come to an hour of this program. I'll turn it back over to you to decide how we go from here.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're only gentlemen here. So I'm very grateful for the participation and all the active engagements that we've had right now. Eddie, kindly mute your microphone.
I'm here.
Wait. Mute your microphone. When you're not speaking, kindly mute your microphone to avoid the background noise. Now, the reason as to why we are talking about civic engagement and organizing grassroots organization is reflected in the powerful words of major scholars. For example, one of the greatest scholars that we have, Henry Clark, once said that powerful people cannot afford to educate the people they oppress. The system of governance and the system of leadership in Africa, I'm not intending to be pessimistic, but I'm ever an optimistic person. However, reality check, and reality has to be said as it is. Our governments, I don't know about your government, but our governments in the country where I live, civic education has not been given a priority. And this is a clear reflection that the ruling class cannot afford to educate people civically on their rights as bestowed in the Constitution. For when a man is educated, when a man is empowered, when a man has information, then the corrupt leaders might not have a fertile ground where they can thrive. And so we keep our people ignorant so that political prostitution and nudity can continue amidst us. And as a people, we are looking for methods and ways that we can educate our people in the simplest language possible, that my grandmother in the village can understand and act on their civic right and take up their civic responsibility as bestowed in the Article 1 of the Kenyan Constitution. All sovereign power belongs to the people, and that power can be exercised either directly or indirectly through elected representatives. In any electoral process or in any democratic system, the citizenry or the citizens always have a contract with the elected representatives, a contract to build roads, a contract to provide food, to ensure that policies are there, that ensures food security, that ensures medical, medication and Medicare, medical systems, that ensures quality education. But when these things are not met, it so means that people whom we have social contract with have broken the contract. When you have employed a person and the person breaches the contract that you did sign, what follows? You terminate the contract, or somebody got to be accountable for breaching the contract that you signed with them in the first place. But that contract cannot, that the contract has been breached, that the citizenry are ignorant of the contract that has been breached, the citizenry cannot act. They cannot take duty bearers to account. And therefore, it's our responsibility as civil societies and as citizens to ensure that we educate our people to take up action, civic action, that will give us good life, that will shape the future of democracy in our land. Another thing that the reason as to why we are also here, and that is reflected in the 365 days of civic engagement. We want a citizenry that have a voice. We want a conducive atmosphere, and we want to create as many platforms as possible where people can hear and express their voices openly. The second thing, we want an empowered society, a society that is organized. The third thing, we want a society where the citizenry can negotiate effectively with the duty bearers at all given time, that the voice of the people can be taken into account at any given time. And the fourth thing that we want to see a society where the citizenry can have access to accurate and timely information. As it stands now, when you're looking for a document from the government, you will be taken round and round and round and round. And when information is not given to the people, people will be acting at a point of ignorance. And that will perpetuate the culture of impunity, negative ethnicity, corruption, name every ill thing that happens in a democratic system. If we don't act as a people, it so means that we are creating a fertile ground through which evil actions will thrive. And so we call on all the citizenry, we call on all civil societies, both in the diaspora and both in the continent and both in the country, in our individual countries, to act solidly. And so I will take it back to Ambassador Andrew Williams. Perhaps you will give our panelists opportunity to give their closing remarks. And since Mr. Michael's microphone is very choppy, I don't know how you're going to handle it. We wanted him to give the closing remark, but we're going to see how you're going to handle that. If his microphone won't be working, then you'll give us a closing remark. Then I think we'll just have the pleasure to close. Thank you so much for being a good host. I will not speak again. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. But before Michael begins, I'd like to take this moment for a commercial break. First, I want to thank you, Josephat, for joining this years-long effort on my own behalf as president of 5 Points Youth Foundation. It was Kofi Annan in 2000, alongside the Millennium Development Goals, that launched what's called the United Nations Global Compact. Many of the problems that you're describing now that are happening in Kenya were happening throughout Africa at that time. And he, as the first sub-Saharan Secretary General of the United States, wanted to do something about it. He did what you are doing, which is to engage other components of the population to become involved with the decision-making process. His effort began with 40 corporations that committed themselves for 10 principles, or 9 principles at that time, to deal with human rights first, and then labor, and then the environment. But later, Kofi Annan made sure they added anti-corruption and transparency to those 10 principles of the United Nations Global Compact. My campaign has been launched in 2015 to 2020 as president of 5 Points Youth Foundation to increase the number of civil society participants. Because Josephat, you have never in one moment of what you mentioned so far in this entire conversation talked about ways that your businesses in Kenya can work with your population and civil society to get things done, even though the businesses are the ones that suffer the most without having transparent operations and anti-corruption in order for them to do business. So I would urge you all to take a look in the chat It's the United Nations Global Compact / participation. My efforts in Africa have been championed by Shola Agbula with the Saga Foundation in Nigeria to set up an online portal where we can begin to identify organizations throughout all countries throughout Africa to begin to work together to make a commitment to hold accountable the businesses and governments in Africa. For example, in 2000, there were just 47 corporations that came together to commit themselves to corporate social responsibility. However, now there are 10,000 of those corporations. There are only 3,000 civil society members. So our task is to double the number or even triple the number so we can have the civil society to balance off those businesses and together have major impacts on the governments. All of the governments in the world, except the United Nations, have made the commitment for the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Kenya itself, its 2030 vision, is also based upon the global outreach and efforts that's going on. The challenges that you're identifying in Kenya are being faced particularly in communities of people of African descent around the world. In fact, the United Nations has designated a decade for people of African descent from 2015 to 2024 for us and the world to come together and recognize this umoja, that we have to work in unity to accomplish our goals and objectives, Josephat. So I will close there, but ask now if Mr. Coopers could unmute himself and attempt to give us his closing remarks.
Yeah, we'll try my best. Thank you very much for all it. At some point, we're bound to take doing our work. That is not the moment for the action now. We are all in is becoming more and more clear. We enter the age of the Anthropocene, the age of humanity, the age of humans living on the planet than ever before, and we have a geographical coming that is asking us to pay our dues. As we enter the age of colonialism, it is becoming neither the diaspora nor the continent nor any continent on this world can afford not in the calculation. So it's becoming more and more important that we use the tools that we have of civic interactions are clearly not doing the jobs that they have to do. And we are more and more times of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter not only in the case of the diaspora, but also globally as on the continent. There's much more tragedy happening than COVID is causing, for example, as a global or as a first pandemic. So with all what I heard today, there's still the hope that people are engaging in different activities that are trying, and that our upcoming generation plan that they can work with, that they can live on, can strive for some kind of future. So let's hope for and work. We're still in hell. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Coopers. I do want to bring to your attention, Josephat, that in Germany in October, as in London, England, that's recognized as Black History Month in those areas. On the 28th of August, Michael will begin his multi-month operation to go through raising that awareness. So I would ask, of course, that we all support his efforts. But on the flip side, Michael, I want to let you know that Jehoshaphat and I came together through a project launched on May 25th of this year called Africa Week 2020. The idea was to take not just one day, but 5 days to focus on a global diaspora coming together. So Michael, consider yourself in the midst of what we call this Sankofa Renaissance, but we're coming back together and celebrating our unity and working together going forward. So with that, Josephat, thank you so much for allowing me to host. And I would ask that you yourself close out today's session.
Thank you so much. Perhaps before I close, I could give Vincent, if you have something to say in 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you very much, and to Josephat and Ambassador and the rest of the panel, and even my colleague from Nigeria. One thing that I would like to say that Africa need transformational leaders. We want leaders who are of the mass, who favor the mass of the people. We don't want self-centered leaders. The issue with Africa is leadership. As we can see, most of the African states, we see leaders are clinging. They want to die in power, whereby they're not even giving good leadership skills. But if good governance is classified as being participatory, transparent, accountable, effective, and compliant to the law, our questions should be, is it responsive to the needs of the people? Then what has gone wrong? So we have a governance crisis whereby we have seen poor access to public service. We have seen rampant corruption, extortion by the agents and the middlemen, brokers. We've seen loose system and weak integrity from the office bearers, from the public service holders. We have seen non-responsive to the issues of the citizen. So it is a time through many initiatives that we've had very many people saying to start with the 360, and also the awareness that our colleague Cooper will be doing in Germany, and the rest of us. Let us be intentional. Let us come forward. Let us see. Particularly, I don't know what's about our other countries, like Josephat has already posted, Ambassador Andrew. But for Kenya, we can clearly say that we are saying that we are a democratic state or nation. But how can we be a democratic state when the poor still continue to be the poor and the richer are continuing to be rich? There is much inequality in our society. So we really need to come in as stakeholders, as supporters, and through your support, Ambassador, and the rest who are on board, we are calling upon you to come together so that we can make an Africa we want, we can make a nation we want, and a community we want. We can change the narrative. At my organization, Tunaweza, that means in English, it means that we can, is that we believe that we can change this narrative. Otherwise, thank you very much, and looking forward to join many of your programs and partner with the Center for African Volunteers and the rest of you. Thank you very much. From Kenya, tunasema asante. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, everybody who tuned in through Facebook and on YouTube, and to all our panelists, Ambassador Andrew Williams, Mr. Michael Coopers, thank you so much for joining us, and Mr. Eddie Ekanem, thank you so much for showing up on a short notice, and Mr. Vincent Miller, thank you so much for also creating time and sharing the gems of your wisdom with us. Before I could close, I don't know, Ambassador, you have something? Did I see your hands up?
Well, yes, actually, I wanted to let everyone know here that as part of our commitment, my commitment to you is that we can rebroadcast this session that we're having now, previous sessions we've had before, and future sessions that we're going to be having on the Revelation Network, trn.tv. And we will be able to make available that platform for anyone that wants to get a message out. So we look forward to working with you, Josephat, to do planning in advance, so that in addition to your outreach through Cav Africa and to YouTube, we can have one place where we can begin to not just have these conversations among ourselves, but engage our audience and build more membership for your CAV Africa as we move forward, and also support our other projects. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That is well taken care of, and moving forward, all the broadcasts will be also in the TRN TV networks. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Until we meet again next Sunday, on Wednesday, and on Tuesdays. Thank you so much. Be blessed.